Is it better to be a hermit or have people who hate you? Hi everyone. Today I'd like to talk to you about being disliked and what that means for a woman, and I guess my thoughts on the topic. I believe this is quite relevant topic, especially in today's day and age, with social media, because you could just go out and film anyone you would like. You could end up on the internet tomorrow, depending on the laws that your country has. It is quite easy for people to assume a position where they have the entitlement to speak or comment on someone, and it's seen as more important than it otherwise naturally would be. We have things like comments now in pages and videos, and we basically have given every single person who's typically an audience a way to express their opinions, which is a good thing, I believe. It's obviously a good thing, and people are going to comment on you no matter what. It's not as if social media invented this. We had gossiping, we had gatherings, people used to talk all the time. However, with social media, it has become quite publicized, this topic. It has become quite, I guess, the jury has spread and it has become almost global. And usually, dislike is not expressed as openly as like is. People are quite hesitant to express how they feel about you. I think we all can tell if someone dislikes us. So it doesn't have to be extremely direct. It can just be a feeling that you have. And unless you experienced bullying in your childhood, which I'm sure many people have, including myself. And with bullying, you are put under a lens and you are criticized on a mass level, on a bigger level than you typically would, because usually dislike is interpersonal. You might dislike me for something I've done to you, or I might not go along with your values, or just there could be so many reasons for someone to dislike me. But if it's a mass dislike, either you are the problem, which that's a different thing, or it is because you don't somehow fit in a social box, or just you don't match people's values, and that does, I guess, invite a lot of dislike towards you, and that is what I'll be talking about. But first, I would like to address something smaller, or not smaller because I think it is equally as significant, but I would like to address the topic of being disliked by someone close to you, disliked interpersonally. I think as someone who has faced rejection in my life on a social level, I think I feel better about experiencing massive social rejection compared to personal rejection, which is funny because I've never been personally rejected by someone off the bat. I don't think most people would do that unless something is probably wrong with them, which I think it's unlikely, because if you were to go up to someone, you were to befriend someone, most likely, especially in this loner day and age, they would be grateful, or at least they would pretend to play along, because no one likes to seem like a bad person unless you're being extremely strange and intrusive. But I think dislike on a personal level, it shows up in ongoing relationships, friendships, social circles, obviously, where there can be so many reasons for someone to dislike you. But what I have commonly observed is what someone feels towards you most likely has more to do with them than it has to do with you. At least that's been my experience. When I was a child, at first I was quite antisocial in the beginning, and I'm not completely antisocial because I do enjoy socializing. I enjoy going out, and it's almost painful for me to spend time alone for a long period of time. Not all the time, because I'm alone right now, but it is a bit painful for me to be alone. And despite that, it's also difficult for me to socialize because I don't have an easy time getting along with a big group of people. I also want to say that I changed schools a few times as a child. I did move around a lot, so that probably didn't help with social integration for me. But anyway, so as a child, I will talk about my experience at school in general. I did not have, I'm sorry, there's a helicopter. Anyway, at school, I did not always have a lot of friends. I remember my first day at my new school, my teacher told me to sit in between three girls, and I liked them because I thought they were so cute, and they were the nicest girls in the class, I think, because I couldn't look at everyone else. I had a short perspective, tunnel vision. I focused on who was besides me, but I wanted to be their friend so bad, and I thought I was, because they were nice to me the whole day. And I was quite young, I think I was 9 or 10. So I sat with these girls because the teacher told me to. And I will point out that I was new and I was extremely shy, not because I felt insecure. I didn't think there was anything wrong with me because I was being polite and I think I looked quite cute. I had a mushroom haircut, which I don't think it was a bad choice. I was 9. But anyway, so I sat with these girls, and at the end of the school day, one of the girls whom I wanted to be friends with wrote a note or posted or something, I don't know what she was planning to do with it, about how she doesn't like me and how she never wants to be friends with me again. And that made me, I didn't even feel sad, I just felt annoyed at the moment, because I was just thinking, what did I do to you that you don't like me even though you just met me and I've been nothing but nice to you, and I don't smell, I don't say anything strange. I didn't do anything to this girl, but she disliked me and she rejected me on the very first day I went to school. This led me to think there was something wrong with me, because why else does everyone dislike me? And not everyone disliked me, but most people did, or at least they excluded me, which led me to believe that they disliked me. As I've grown up, this did nerf my social skills to a good extent. I didn't speak a lot for a few years, and people used to tell me, and I did begin to speak afterwards. People used to tell me how they were so surprised that I speak so much now, because in the past I did not speak at all, which it's because I thought you didn't like me. But after a few years of not speaking to a lot of people, I did begin to speak more, because I was able to refine my language, learn more of it, and communicate better. And I began to speak more to people because I also got familiar with these people, even though I had an idea that they probably didn't like me that much, but we were spending half of our day together, so it was natural that I would socialize with them. Slowly, as I began speaking to them more after years, I realized that they liked me, and people liked me, and people thought I was funny and this or that. Most people, not everyone. Obviously, I didn't know for sure, but and not much had changed, to be honest, between me then at 9 years old and me at 15. I was still the same person to a great extent, because if you're in the same environment, it's not like you change drastically. I still looked the same, and I would argue I looked worse because I gained a lot of weight due to some medication that I was on. My gut was destroyed. I looked horrible, and I was quite cute as a child, and I wasn't as cute at 15. But people liked me more at 15 than they did at 9. And this caused a lot of confusion in me, because I still felt insecure about how I looked, but people liked me. After this, it was time for university. I graduated, I got into the university that I wanted, and I was moving again to an entirely different country. Again, this meant I didn't speak the language. I had no idea about the culture. I still had all of these issues about socializing that I carried from my childhood, because I still struggled to socially integrate within a society, you could say. But I was quite talkative. Naturally, I am, I think. And I wasn't feeling as bad as I previously did. In college, I was able to make a lot of friends, which was the first for me, for people to like me off the bat without any prejudice or issues with me. And this made me feel and see life in a completely different perspective, because I was so used to being disliked first and then building myself up in a way that I could be liked. And this wasn't even by integration, because I could not, for the life of me, change. Even if I wanted to be social with someone, I was not able to adapt to people extremely well. I still liked the things I liked, and I couldn't pretend to like someone I didn't. And if someone treats you badly, you're not going to be nice to them. And if you are, I don't necessarily respect that, even though I understand that it's a defense mechanism. My point is, yes, in college, I had a lot of friends all of a sudden. Not a lot, but way more than before. And this made me think, and I also lost the weight that I had gained due to the medication I took as a child. And I felt better, I looked better, everything was going much better. And I also lived alone during this time, which isolated me to a great extent, because while I had friends, I spent majority of my day alone, which allowed me to reflect and think about things in a way I was not able to do in the past. Because when you're surrounded by people, especially people who openly dislike you, it's difficult for you to objectively see yourself, which I don't think you ever can. We're all seeing ourselves subjectively, But even then, it's harder to do so clearly when you're being disliked from every single direction. But anyway, I was able to think of myself for the first time, and I thought about it, and I realized that how I looked or how I behaved or just any of these things about me, a lot of the time had nothing to do with people's feelings towards me. I was not someone who was easy to dislike, but I did not make myself available to be liked either, because I wasn't sociable, and people typically misunderstood that as me being aloof, I think. And to some extent, this is my fault, but it is something I grew into due to the rejection that I faced as a child. And when I dropped that in college, because I was no longer surrounded by the people who disliked me in the first place, that is when I realized that I had perhaps been quite unsociable in the past. My point is that with dislike, I don't think it has a lot to do with you as a person, unless obviously you somehow disrupt social harmony and cause harm to people, which a lot of social rules exist in order to have harmony in society and get along easily, not cause any issues or friction between people. That's a completely different thing. But I'm speaking of being disliked when you don't quite know why, when you've done nothing wrong, which is a subjective matter. But I think most of the time it says more about the person who dislikes you than it does about you and how they feel about you. For example, me myself, when I have been nice to people off the bat, which I always am, I don't think we should treat people poorly unless they have given us a reason to do so. I'm usually quite nice to people, and this is without expecting anything, obviously, but I'm just saying, I haven't given, let's say I was nice to someone I met. Let's say I met two people, Alice and Jane, and at the same time, and I met these people and I said hi, hello, we had some small conversation, and they go back. And Alice seems to think I was so nice to her. She wants to be friends with me because she thinks I was so polite and I was so nice to her, and she thinks we could get along. At the same time, Jane, who was also present in that moment and had the same experience with me more or less, thinks I was way too nice and that I might be fake and that I might be insincere. And despite the fact that both of them had the same experience with me, both of them see me differently. The way people feel about you most of the time says more about them than it does about you. And it's usually a projection of how they feel about themselves and also how they feel about other people. This aside, the concept of dislike does show up a lot in social environments. Your friends might dislike you at times for no reason, and establishing that you are probably going to be disliked a lot for no reason. I also want to address how I feel about rationalizing this dislike and how you should move on when you are already at that position. For me personally, it's been almost, because I used to associate being disliked with I'm doing something wrong. I used to think that because this person doesn't approve or these people don't approve of what I'm doing, there must be something I need to assess within myself that I could be doing wrong, or maybe I didn't say something the right way and they took it the wrong way. Maybe I didn't communicate myself enough. I used to be super self-assessing. I used to think about how I can improve my actions so that something won't repeat in the future. And when it came to dislike or someone not approving of something I said, I used to automatically think of it as a chance for me to, again, assess myself and maybe think about how maybe I've done something wrong. We think that because someone disapproves of something we said, then we must be doing something wrong, because society or the external is giving us feedback that something we've said is not being taken well. And this can cause me, at least, to reassess what I've been doing and criticize myself and reflect on if I'm doing the right thing or not. Moral policing, especially, I consider myself a morally strong person. I have good faith in my conscience, but there have been times where someone has perceived me to be maybe not the best person for things that hurt absolutely no one. And this used to make me wonder at first if I had been too harsh perhaps, and if there was something for me to reassess. But I've come to realize that, again, dislike, which we established is a very subjective emotion to have, does not necessarily mean that you're doing something wrong. Obviously, this applies to only a certain set of people. I'm not speaking of the people who actively hurt someone and say harsh things in the name of being blunt. I'm personally not that kind of person. I find it to be disrespectful. But I'm speaking of generally normal things where you speak your mind on a personal level and people don't seem to like you for it because you're not being accommodating enough or you're not considering people enough. We want to be just and give justice to people and be fair. But amidst all of this, I think we often forget that you are the first person that requires this fairness and this sense of justice. I think the first person you owe all of this to is yourself. And a lot of times people seem to perceive you putting yourself first as a matter of selfishness, or they just don't seem to like it. Because obviously, I'll give an example for this. Let's say you are sharing a room with 3 people and you want to sleep because you have a test tomorrow and it's already midnight. But these 2 other people, let's say they're playing a game or they're just speaking to each other and being loud. You have every right in that moment, despite being a minority, because they have a majority vote, despite being a minority, you have every right to demand to sleep. And you have every right to tell them to go outside and continue their game elsewhere. This act, depending on the person, could invite criticism towards you. They could go out, they will go out most likely because they don't want to fight and just, let's say they will most likely go out, and then these 2 people might speak poorly of you, saying how you're being quite standoffish, or you're being harsh, or you're being unnecessary, or you killed all the fun, or any of these reasons. And it's not that big of a deal, just sleep afterwards. They have slept before and they have stayed up for you before, and so many reasons they could criticize you. However, you needed to sleep. And if you were to think of someone you loved and they needed to sleep and they needed to go somewhere the next day, I am quite sure that you would go outside and you would let them sleep, right? And if someone doesn't want to do that for you, or they do it but then they speak poorly of you because of it, which they will, if you ask them to allow you space and if you ask them to allow you to prioritize yourself, a lot of people are going to tell you that they don't like it. They're going to call you selfish, they're going to call you names, they're going to project themselves and call you all sorts of things because of something that you did to make yourself feel good. Doing no harm to anyone, just prioritizing yourself. Because it doesn't take a lot to accommodate you and just go outside, right? It doesn't. But these people will take it personally. And this is a very small example, but this shows up in so many ways in life where just by prioritizing yourself, you can hurt people, you can alienate yourself from people and almost feel like a bad person because of it. Because the first priority you have and the first duty you have in this world is towards yourself. It is towards you, and you should do yourself justice before you think about anyone else in this world. And I firmly believe on that note that self-harm, self-sabotage, suppressing yourself just to accommodate someone else, all of these are some of the biggest sins that you can do before even harming someone else. Because if you harm yourself, which is quite literally the being that allows you to experience this life, which gives you life, if you harm this being, yourself, I don't think there's any sin that's bigger than that. I'm not saying be completely selfish or don't accommodate people. You should do that as long as it's not at your expense. Because there's no virtue in this world that comes from putting yourself down in order to appease or accommodate someone else. Absolutely not. I used to be quite guilty of this. I am quite accommodating and used to be, because I've always thought about how I would like to be treated and I would like to treat people the same way as I would like to be treated. But more often than not, this has led me to neglect myself, neglect my needs, even on a small level, because it could be as simple as the example I gave of just sleeping on time. For someone else, you would stay up and accommodate them, and all of this doesn't make a big difference, and that is how they can rationalize it towards you. They could say that it doesn't really matter if you sleep now or after 30 minutes, but it kind of does. It's not a big deal by any means. It's also not necessary. I don't think yes, they can negotiate with you, but it does not really make them any more correct than you are. But the point is, you want to sleep and you have every right to demand that. If this brings you scrutiny or causes you to be disliked, you are not wrong. I'm not saying this for the hyper selfish culture that's hyper individualistic, that, oh, if I don't go and pick up my friend from the airport, then I'm being selfish. Or obviously you should accommodate people. Picking someone up from the airport does not hurt you, and if you want to do this, you want to spend time with your friend, you absolutely should. I'm not talking about all of these things. I'm talking about when they dislike you for doing something that has not harmed them in any way and has just been you prioritizing yourself in a way that's necessary and doesn't hurt anyone. In the end, you could give so many reasons for someone to dislike you. They could be right a lot of the time, they could be wrong, but in the end, the more you think about it, the more it's going to hurt you. And I think the solution is truly to just not give it that much importance, not give it that much thought, and leave it at that. I think the solution to this is 99.9999999% of people, except yourself, your friends, your family, your friends, the ones who actually like you, just don't think about them. Just don't think about them and focus on your work, focus on yourself. Don't think good about anyone, don't think badly about anyone. Just focus on yourself. Think good thoughts. If you get bad feedback, may not be the best advice if you're someone who desires massive social acceptance, but I still have friends, so it should be fine, I think. And maybe this way you can find people who actually like you. It's getting late, I should go home now, but these were my thoughts on the topic of being disliked and why that doesn't have to matter and why that doesn't have to mean that you're a bad person. So I hope you can take my advice and let's all be good people.